What would it be like if you were totally motivated to excel and exceed? Exceed the success that you have in your mind. Have more success than you can imagine. Well, here's one way. There'll be others to come, but here's just one way that just works. And I've got it just for you. Hey, my friends, Paul here, Paul Clough, Personal Development Unplugged, the podcast that, well, deconstruct the most complicated things or the things that have been made complicated by other people so you can so you can succeed at life, have personal development, and I do it all with hypnosis, NLP, timeline therapy, lots of other stuff. Enjoy.
Warning.
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 Warning. You are entering into the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. Too late. Personal Development Unplugged.
Hey, Paul here. How are you? How are you this fine day? I hope it's a fine day. And I wonder if this has ever happened to you. And, there's a thing about, for me anyway, being reminded of stuff, but making sure that you take notice of it. And it's as if you've been reminded for that very reason. And a big shout out to this guy called Robin Dreeke. Who's Robin? Robin Dreeke? Well, I'll tell you about that later. You may have heard of him. But hey, this is, all very vague, isn't it? And the reason it's all very vague is because, you see, Joseph and I, my youngest son, we were doing, a few years ago now, back in Cambridge, in the UK, we were doing practitioner and master practitioners trainings and getting a nice little number of practitioners coming along to the trainings, but it just wasn't where we wanted to be. We would like to do, at that time, to do more and with more people, because that's what you want to do when you do trainings. You want to start sharing what you know to as many people as you can. A bit like what I'm trying to do here, I guess. But what we were doing just didn't seem to be working. And to be honest, we didn't really know why. Well, we may have known why, but we didn't know why because as if we weren't asking the right questions of ourselves, I guess. You see, we then decided to invest in this particular guy. And unfortunately, I can't remember his name because I'd give him a big shout out too, because he came to see us and he said, yeah, he could help. And he wasn't cheap, which really meant we were going to have to invest big time. But we thought about it for a little while and said, okay, come on, we'll go with you. Let's just see what happens. Well, not just a case of just see what happens. We'll do whatever it takes and then see what happens. And so what he said was, well, you're going to have to do exactly what I say, which is a little bit like, well, the thing I've always been taught that if you bring in a consultant and you don't do what the consultant says, what's the point of bringing a consultant? And you have to do it word for word. And we did that with one exception. You see, this guy asked questions of us. And some of them were easy questions, but some of them were bloody difficult. And they were hard to answer. And I think it's because they were hard to answer. And sometimes you had to be brutally honest with yourselves. They're the type of questions you don't normally ask yourself. And you do need someone from the outside looking in to ask you those questions. And the questions were, what did we want? And we just said, we want to do more trainings. No. What do you want? How many trainings? How many people? Where do you want to do them? When exactly do you want to? Let's set out exactly what you want to do. And what is your message? What are your resources? My son had quite a big email list. So we go, yeah, we've got an email list. Okay, fine. It's not that big. I thought, we thought it was really big, but actually it wasn't that big. And he said, well, let's have a look at your actual resources. So other than an email list. So he said, well, we've got a camera. We can do videos. At that time, it was a tiny little video camera, which worked pretty well for the internet. And we've got a lot of knowledge, and we've got a program, and we've got a practitioners, master prac and ordinary practitioner in NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnosis. I said, oh, good. Well, we've got some real good stuff to work on. I said, but you're going to have to decide exactly how much you want to earn from this. Because it's not, this is a professional thing you're going to be doing. It was professional before, but this is something that you really have to decide. And when we started saying, well, this is the type of thing we would like to earn, so okay, well, let's come backwards and break it down into weekly. Even though you're not, you haven't got a practitioner going, if you divide the sum of money back into weeks, that's how much the effort you have to put in to get that money, to get that type of return. And that started to shock us a little bit, because that means we were used to just doing things a bit haphazardly. And it really focused our mind. And the only thing we changed from what he said, because he said, what we're going to do is we're going to do this on week 3, this on week 4, this on week 5. And then you're going to go back to those people in whatever week. And then you're going to do this, then you're going to do that. And we're going to move it all to one weekend's, a weekend training. Because you said you've got a weekend's training. So we'll do that. So you could do it just in half a day. Do it in half a day and get people enticed. And that's where we actually didn't agree, because we said we don't do things just to entice people and rush to the back of the hall, hands up, back of the hall, get this cheap price or this discounted price. We said we don't do that. We're just not those people. We're not salesmen. So he said, well, you've got to be a little bit. Then you've got to work it out in a way that, if you've got something of value, you've got to just share the value. So I said, okay, well, what we're going to do, though, we're going to do the whole weekend. He said, sure, you can do a whole weekend? Yeah, we're going to do a whole weekend with people, and then we'll share it. And the price we put on this weekend was absolutely ridiculous. It was less than $50 for a whole weekend. And also with that, you got teas and coffees and a few sandwiches at lunchtime. So it's a crazy price. Certainly, we had to get a lot of people to come and see us just to try to break even on that. And that was really nervous. Or that made us really nervous, because now we were in it and there was no going back, and we'd taken responsibility. We'd made a choice. But the problem is we hadn't, in our own little world, we hadn't paused and reflected and think and asked ourselves those really good questions, those difficult questions. And we hadn't focused on what we really wanted. So we set this program up. We started recording, and we had to hit those dates, because every time if we didn't hit those dates, the whole thing fell down. It's like a domino rally set up in a certain way. And we'd arranged for a big hall, and it was a massive hall in a sports complex, massive. And we thought, well, this is a little bit, normally we'd only ever done maybe 20 people, and we're looking for a big hall. So okay, let's go for it. So what happened? Well, you see, that reminds me of a time with my eldest son, Daniel. He had an internet company mainly based in America. Actually, he was in Cambridge working from my house, but he had a partner in America, and they had this company going for fitness supplements. And they said, really doing well, Dad. I'm really doing well. We're pushing this out, and we're doing this and we're doing that. And everything is going so well. But it doesn't seem to be that there's money. We're not seeing the return for all. We're being so successful, but the returns aren't there. And something went through my mind at that time. I thought to that experience I had with Joseph. So I said to Daniel, well, let's just sit down and I'll ask you some questions. And you see how difficult they are, but you'll answer them. And it's like asking someone to look deep inside their business. And it was his baby. And looking in some ways for faults or things that weren't going right, which obviously you don't want to do when it's your baby. And it's successful. Well, at one end you got a lot of business coming through, but coming out the other end was not what they wanted. Not sustainable anyway. So we asked some really difficult questions, and he had to go and dive into, with his colleague in America, so they're doing it online, to find out what was actually happening. What was the great bits, what were happening, and what the ones that weren't so great. So do you know what? He did that. Well, I'll tell you what happens in a minute, because this is where Robin Dreeke comes in. And Robin Dreeke is Dreeke. And he comes into my mind because I was listening to him talk, and he's an author. He's also an ex-FBI agent, and he's written this book called Sizing Up People. But that's got nothing to do with this, because it wasn't about, again, sizing up people, but it was, but not in this context that I'm talking to you about. But again, it's one of these side notes, a side note that slips in the conversation that makes Cluffy's ears suddenly prick up. And what he said was, he was talking about, I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was saying, well, asking that question, what are you really trying to do? Because we have to do that, don't we? What are you trying to do? Make sure we fully understand the outcome. So I get that bit. And he asked the question, well, is what you're doing getting there? Oh, yeah, that's a good... We're starting to analyse things, and just to sit back a little bit and goes, or is there a better choice? And I thought that's something that for me, as being an options person, was nearly there. Because I said, well, what about, is what you're doing getting you there, or are there, not is, are there better choices? I added the plural. And you think, well, okay, Cluffy, that's not brilliant. But actually, I think it was. I thought it was that little bit of genius. And we know that in simplicity, there's genius. And it's also part of that rarely found uncommon common sense. Because you look at that, you go, well, that's common sense, Paul. Ask yourself a question. Are you getting there? And are there better choices? Well, he said better choice. So we expanded upon that already. But you see, asking a question is so obvious. A flash of the bleeding obvious again. But how many times do we do that? How many times when things are going well, do we ask, is what we're doing getting us there? And are there better choices? Oh, can we learn from what we're doing now and make it even better? Maybe there's just another horizon that we're missing. Is there better ways that we can get to what we want? Make it easier, make it more effortless, make it more profitable, make it more enjoyable, make it more delightful, or whatever. Make it more simple. But we don't. And sometimes when there's a bit of an issue going on, what do? We just push harder. We put our head down. We're going to push through this. We're just going to push through this. Well, you can push through something, but if it's not the right thing to push, you're just creating more problems. So asking that question, what are you trying to do? Reminding you of the outcome. What is your intention? What are you trying to get? What are you trying to exceed at? What are you trying to get at the end? Your outcome, your goal, your dream. I mean, that's a great thing. And I think that's what we should always do every now and again anyway. But we don't. So here's what I thought about. I thought this is such a good thing that's come through, because it's just a matter of continually trying to exceed what you're doing and always finding better ways. And my meta note for this was, let's get it into a habit. Because if you can get this into a habit, which is an unconscious, isn't it? An unconscious behavior, that you will always then be unconsciously and consciously developing better ways, developing better choices. And you're not then coming up to roadblocks or things that you've got to push against. Because when you push against something, bloody tiring, isn't it? But when you've got motivation inside you and you're making great choices, it's so easy, isn't it? And that muscle, that choice muscle in your brain gets exercised, gets stretched, gets bigger, it just gets so much better. So how do you do all of that? And we've talked about it before. We have to stop. Yes, stop just for a moment. Pause, and that's a sort of stop. And reflect. Reflect, review, you could call it. And think. And I think sometimes, I know I have this problem. I can think, or I think I've thought, and then I've moved on. I've ticked the box. But doing a bit of deep thinking, Cal Newport, deep thinking, doing some deep work, reflecting, thinking, looking at different choices, and reminding yourself, taking time with the intention to review. And this all goes back to what we've been talking about, isn't it? That stretch of being able to learn more and develop yourself more. That was just either the last or the last but one episode, #184. I'm not quite sure where I am here, but that's the one. So we've got that. And if you just think, what would happen if I maybe just did it weekly for a moment on things that are going well, things that maybe not going well, but just all things in the projects that I have going on in my life, the things I want to develop in my life. Because they don't have to be projects. Well, they're all sort of projects, aren't they? But even if you just want to keep a relationship really shining and burning bright, then to reflect upon it, to stop, to pause, to reflect, to think. Remind yourself of what your goal is, what your intention is. And notice as you review how well you've done, and ask yourself some sort of difficult questions, but when they're not difficult, when you know what your outcome is and what your intention is. So they're not criticism anymore. They're questions to help develop you. And you get that going. And it just seems to make things better. So when you next time you stop, reflect, or pause and reflect and think and remind yourself of that intention, it just becomes easier because now you're looking at things that are going well to make them even better. And if you do come across a bump in the road, you can resolve it quicker, easily, before it becomes really bumpy. You just after the first bump. And this also applies, I guess, to investing in you. Remember that was the other podcast. Time to invest in you. Boom. This is all about investment, but just another way of doing it. And although it is another way, but we talk about this continually, I guess. But these things don't go away. If they work, they work. Things just work. We don't have to make them more difficult than they need to be. They don't need to make them any more simpler than they need to be, because then if it's too simple, you don't get the results you want. But if you could just do a little bit, imagine now, if you were to stop, to pause, to reflect on a particular project you had, and you took the time to do that deep work. And deep work doesn't have to be hours and hours and hours, remember. It's just getting yourself into that deep work to remind yourself of your intention, your goal, how things going, what resources you got. Maybe there's new resources. Remind yourself where you're really going and are you going there? And are there better choices? Imagine what you'd see if you looked at yourself achieving that goal. Because it's achievable now, because you're working towards it. What would you see? How would that you over there look achieving that goal? Because you can imagine that, couldn't you? Maybe that's part of the review and the reflect. Reminding yourself of that goal, your intention, by imagineering your success. Think of the things that you would hear or even say to yourself. How would that voice be, that internal voice of yours? Would it be a critical voice? Probably not anymore. So what type of voice would it be? What type of tone would it have? And how would you feel when you're making really good choices? How would you feel about even overcoming those bumps in the road, knowing that you've got a habit now, something that you schedule into your week, your month? How would your physiology change? And that smell and taste of success. And I wonder how many other projects you'd be able to do or things you'd want to improve upon yourself. How would they go when you could see yourself succeeding in one particular area? I know for a fact that all areas of your life will change too, because your confidence in one area of your life will spread to other areas. So you become confident in yourself, because it's not about being confident about that thing. It's about being self-confident, having high self-esteem, being able to just go, well, I know I can access the resources. I'm confident. It's okay. I've got this. What would that be like if you could put that all together? Wouldn't that be worth the time to stop, to pause, to reflect, do that deep thinking just for some minutes every week to review your intention and ask yourself that question. Is what I'm doing getting me there? And are there better choices? And if there were better choices, what would they be? That's the next part, isn't it? Because you can say, yeah, there are better choices, but if you're not going to think about them, like I would say, yeah, there are lots of better choices, think, and then disappear and forget about them. That's my downfall on some of the projects I've seen, so I've got to improve upon that. Don't tell anybody, though. But when you do that, what are the results going to be? And how will that affect every other thing in your life? You see, when Daniel did this, he found some of the things that he thought were going well weren't quite as good as they wanted. They were paying too much for a particular bit of postage, and they were doing this and that. And little things in the background were just eating away at their expenses. So he fine-tuned it, and he had to monitor it on, first of all, on a weekly basis, and then on a monthly basis, because he had to dive in and change things around. And he's a great problem solver. I think this is where he learned a lot of his problem solving, by having this type of process. And I know he uses this type of process in his life now, his business life now. Made some difficult choices, found better ways, and guess what? That business took off. He's so pleased. And also, do you remember Joseph and I? We'd done all these things this guy had asked us to do. We had booked this ever so big haul, thinking, crikey, I just hope we're going to do this. And also knowing we'd actually gone a little bit away from this guy's advice, saying that we're not going to go back to the back of the hall and take advantage of a discount. We said, no, we're going to give people 7 days to think about it. And if they give us their name and number, we'll phone them up and they talk to us. There is no quick decision. We're not going to have buyer's remorse. We only want people who want to work with us. And we did the whole weekend, which was nothing about our courses, apart from about a 15-20 minute segue on the second day, in the afternoon before everyone finished. Not deliberately so, we really just wanted to get the real training doing. Lovely weekend training about working on your future. And we said to people, well, I'm sorry, but we're not salesmen, but we want to just explain what we'll do. Would that be okay? And people were going, absolutely. We've just seen you do a wonderful demonstration. You've led us through a whole weekend of discovery. Please tell us more about what we want you to tell us. Don't hold back. I went, whoa. So you don't want to say, no, just tell us what you do. So we did that. And it went down a storm. In fact, as people were leaving, there were people saying, well, I'd actually like to book up now. And we go, you got 7 days. No, I want to take advantage of what you said, because it's really beneficial. So we'll take your name and telephone number. We are going to get back to you, because if you do change your mind, that'll be fine. But if not, we'll come and talk to you about more things. And the result was unbelievable. Before, we were doing probably 2 to maybe 3 trainings a year. We were suddenly doing twice as many as that, and with more people. And with people who wanted to be with us because they'd seen us, they'd been with us for that weekend. It was an awesome thing that we got that rapport with them. We didn't try to sell, but we just showed them our way of doing things. And we made great friends from that as well. Great friends, because the people who come to work for us, or not for us, they come to work with us to become practitioners of NLP, master practitioners. We're still in contact with them even now. And this is a few years ago now. So even though I can't remember the guy's name, he did a wonderful job with us, making us stop and ask ourselves some difficult questions, to reflect upon them, think about them, making sure, we know we've got to have the will to do whatever it takes, but make sure that we actually did that. And every week we had to pause, reflect and think. And if we had to make better choices, we had to make better choices. And if we were running behind, we had to find out a way to exceed. And we did. And how did that make Joseph and I feel? Absolutely awesome, because we got into that flow, and we've used that technique. We've actually trained and taught people that the sort of things that we were taught by this guy. And when we look at it now, everything I do, because I'm an options person, I tend to look at the choices I've got, and can I find more choices? And I love questions, so I try to ask difficult questions, but I'm really asking difficult questions of my best friend, my unconscious mind. Because I know my conscious mind, I don't know the answers. But I know if I ask the right question inside, something will happen. We always say the right teacher comes along at the right time. And it's as if the right book comes along, or the right podcast. I listen to that one little thing, a side note. And it's a side note to everyone else, but it comes out in like massive volume in my ears. And I go, Evernote, make a few notes of that. And then I think about it, and then I make some notes and talk to you about it. Or other stuff I've been doing, some of my own personal projects. And it just works. And even if you said, oh, Cluffy, it is so simple. Exactly. But it's so simple, but so success, isn't it? When you have it. So's getting better at things when you practice. Because when you practice these things, they don't make perfect, they make permanent. And good practice makes good permanent. Good behaviors that makes you get lucky, doesn't it? Those people who practice a lot, they don't half get lucky. Things just seem to happen for them. Old serendipity and coincidence just seem to fall in their laps, doesn't it? No, they don't. It's because they took the time to do what we're just talking about. And so, big shout out to that Robin Drake for reminding me, because it's good to forget the things you don't need to remember and let your unconscious mind remember the things you need to remember and bring them up to your conscious mind to make you aware of them. So you do them and get that unconscious habit of mastery, doing what you know and knowing what you do, and then stretch yourself, invest a little bit more. Hey, did that all make sense? Did it make perfect sense? No, I don't want it to make perfect sense. I also want you to think, okay, Cluffy, how can I make that better? Because I added an S to choices. Choice to choices. And is to are. Are there better choices? And it seems to just then resonate with me better. So what could you add to this? Let's take Robin Dreek's little side note and make it even bigger, make it even better. And I'd love to hear how you evolve this in your mind. Because again, we go back to that integrated field of learning. Robin Dreek has lost nothing by sharing that bit with me. In fact, me sharing it with you, I've still got it too. And you've got it as well. So we just doubled it, but it's still around. And if you look to evolve it even better, make it more personal to you, and you share that back with me, we've both grown again. And you share it with your friends, just like you'll share this podcast, won't you? And share the golden nuggets. And I'm sure, I know not every episode will resonate with you, but I really hope it does. And I really know, though, what I do know is, if the whole subject doesn't resonate with you, I know you'll find some nuggets in here, just like that side note that I get. Do let me know what it is, or what they are, and maybe who you shared it to, and how you did it, and all that stuff. Come on, you can just email me, feedback@personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. Have more fun than you can stand. Enjoy every heartbeat. And again, just talking to you, the unconscious mind. What would it be like? What would it be like to surprise their conscious mind by feeling happy for no reason? Take that in and allow it to happen right now. See you later. This is Paul Clough from Personal Development Unplugged. Enjoy the rest of your day, your life, everything. See you soon. Bye-bye. Before you go, my friend, I'd like to ask you a question. Did you learn something from this episode? I hope you did, because even though every episode may not be the one that really floats your boat, sets you, alight, hopefully there's a takeaway in each and every episode for you. And I'd love to know what it was. So please do email me at feedback@personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. It's a personal email to me. I'd love to know so we can carry on doing this work that will allow you to exceed your dreams. And what's the payment for this? Payment, Cluffy? What are you talking about, payment? I thought it was free. Well, it's like, pay it forward. And if you could pay this forward in 2 ways, or maybe 3. The first way is, please share it. Share this podcast with as many people as you could. And you can. It's very easy. Just press that share button. Send it off by email to them. You'd love to. This is something you might get that right, Paul. Something you might enjoy. And hey, if you could, a real big pay it forward to me is wherever you're getting this podcast. Is it iTunes, Castbox, or Stitcher, or whichever you're getting it from, Google Play, I don't know. Would you please just leave a review? Because the review really helps people find this podcast. There's thousands out there, and I want to direct people to this podcast. And the way to do it is by reviews. So if you could do that, if you could share, you could do that. And also just make sure that you're subscribed so you get this episode and every other episode on a Wednesday and a Saturday. If you could do all of that, my little heart will sing. And if you want me to sing, well, you'll have to wait and see. Enjoy. But please do all of that. Make my heart sing. Bye-bye now.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.